Good evening and welcome to the regular council meeting for Wednesday, March 20th, and we're beginning right at 6 p.m. At this time, I'd like to confirm the agenda. Are there any emergent items from any of the councilors to add to the agenda? Councillor Peterson?
Your Worship, if I could add an item to the in-camera portion of the meeting regarding the 2024 Family Community Support Services Grant Program.
Okay, thank you.
I would need administration's advice under what section of 24 would need to be, possibly 19.
Okay. Anything else from any other councilors? Anything from administration or lead services to add?
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing from administration.
Thank you. So I guess we can get that before we go in camera, possibly the section number that it would pertain to?
I think it's just, Your Worship, I think it's just, it's regarding information, so it's just section
Yeah, it would
24,
be
subsection 1.
Okay,
24-1A, I think it is advice.
1B, I think it is.
B, you're right,
Okay.
advice from officials.
so we'll just remember that for the motion to go in camera then. So no other items. I'll turn to council and we'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? No, sorry, we need a motion to approve as amended. Thanks, Mark. Councillor Peterson.
Your Worship, I'd move that council adopt the March 20th, 2024 regular council meeting agenda as amended, as presented.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
And that motion is carried. We move now to public hearing 3.1. Public hearing for land use bylaw amending bylaw number 24-02, 318 First Avenue, Strathmore. The purpose of this, legislative services to do this part.
Go ahead first, Your Worship.
Okay. Thank you. The public hearing for bylaw number 24-02, being a bylaw to amend land use bylaw number 14-11, is in session at 6:04 p.m. This public hearing is held pursuant to the Municipal Government Act, RSA 2000, Chapter M-26, and amendments thereto.
The purpose of this public hearing is to discuss bylaw 2402, being a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw number 1411. First reading was given during the February 21st, 2024 regular council meeting. The public hearing was advertised on February 22nd, 2024 through Canada Post, regular mail to adjacent landowners, February 26, 2024 to present on the town's website, February 28th, 2024 in the Strathmore Times, February 28th, 2024 on Facebook, March 6th, 2024 in the Strathmore Times, March 7th, 2024 on Facebook, and also included in the March utility bill insert. And no written submissions have been received to date.
Thank you. Pursuant to the Town's Council Procedure Bylaw, the following rules of conduct shall be followed during the public hearing to ensure procedural fairness. No person shall address council without the permission of the mayor. No person shall speak more than once or for more than 5 minutes, exclusive of the time required to answer questions from council. Respect for staff, council, and the public shall always be maintained. And any person who wishes to address council shall state and spell their name. The order of presentation shall be the administration, those in favor of the bylaw, those opposed to the bylaw, any other person deemed to be affected by the bylaw. Council may ask questions of the speakers after each presentation for clarification purposes, and there will be no debating the bylaw. Would administration like to present now, please?
Sure. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, councilors, and the public, staff members as well in chambers. The presentation that I'll give tonight is regarding bylaw 24-02. It is for a property in Strathmore, 318 First Avenue. And this is the public hearing component of the planning process. The Development Services Department did receive this application in November of 2023, and it was deemed to be complete in January of 2024 after additional materials were provided. The first reading, as we heard, was in February of 2024, and this evening is the statutory public hearing component to that. Bylaw 24-02 would allow for a secondary suite to be located within the basement of an existing single detached dwelling on the subject lands. I won't read out here each bullet point. We did hear already the public notice was given by mail, regular mail to nearby landowners, also in the Strathmore Times, town's website, and also the town's Facebook page. So the lands are outlined here in red, and they are designated residential in the town's municipal development plan. Just generally speaking, they're to the east of Wheatland Trail, to the south of Waddy Lane, and to the west of 3rd Street in the town's downtown north area. This area and this location offers an ideal location for increasing the wider range and supply of affordable housing options that are available in Strathmore, and in particular the downtown area. There are 3 photos here in the presentation that do depict the subject lands. The first one in the upper left corner is the existing single detached dwelling with the driveway. There are 2 parking spots there available for the dwelling right now. And the one on the right is the one that I would highlight next is the access to another parking spot that would be in the rear yard. That would be the parking spot for the secondary suite. So the existing dwelling is considered to be a legal existing dwelling within the R3 district. It was constructed in 1972, so it's considered to be a permitted use in that district. I did point out, and hopefully you can see my mouse pointer here, the additional parking space will be in the rear yard. And it will be from a gravel lane, whereas Waddy Lane is further to the north. So the bylaw itself would amend and redesignate the lands from R3 to an R3 direct control district. So the base zoning would remain the same, but there would be a special permission on the lands to add the secondary suite within the existing dwelling. So that would mean that this is a site-specific redesignation. It would only apply to the lands at 318 First Avenue. In terms of land use planning analysis, this bullet point here chart shows sort of the land use planning framework or hierarchy in the province of Alberta. I've highlighted the 3 that I feel are important that I'll go into detail on tonight. With respect to the application, that's the town's municipal development plan, the town's strategic plan, as well as the town's land use bylaw. But before I moved on, I also do want to highlight for council that in terms of affordability and the affordable housing crisis, both regional, national, and perhaps even internationally, the secondary suite here provides an opportunity to provide at least even just one more unit in the town that can provide some affordable housing. So the lands are, sorry. So the lands are designated residential and they're in the downtown north district. The policies that we've highlighted in the staff report pertain to secondary suites specifically. Policy 321 knows that secondary suites contribute to the availability of a wider range of housing types, and they will contribute towards meeting the housing needs in the town, but also specifically in the downtown. And then with policy 3216, secondary suites are viewed as being an appropriate method for providing affordable housing in all residential areas. And there are some parameters around that. In particular here, parking requirements will be satisfied. And then after this land use planning process unfolds, if the application was to be approved, there would be development permit and building permit requirements as well. Policy 332, the downtown does have 3 sub areas, and each of those has unique features and unique policy features attached to them. And this property is in the downtown north district. So this area does have predominantly residential character, and the MDP envisions continuing increases in density. And in that respect, the secondary suite will not negatively impact this policy direction. And then just generally speaking, there's no concerns from staff around any negative impacts should the secondary suite be approved in terms of the policy directions, the larger policy directions of the town that are identified in the MDP. In terms of the strategic plan, the development proposal touches as well on three areas. First, affordable housing. I mentioned earlier that secondary suites, when you're thinking about affordability, they do increase the overall supply of affordable housing units, even if it is a small increase, but it does contribute well to this notion of increasing the range of options and built forms. Affordable housing can come in many different shapes and sizes, if you will. Secondly, community wellness. The secondary suites can often provide affordable housing options within an existing community. So, for example, this prevents someone, perhaps it's a parent or grandparent, from having to move elsewhere to afford their housing. So it works well in existing communities. And then financial sustainability. This secondary suite will utilize existing municipal services and infrastructure. So when I say that, you can think about things like existing water and sanitary sewer services, but also access to parks and other things that are in the area, um, which makes this secondary suite in particular financially sustainable. In terms of the land use bylaw itself, the lands are currently zoned R3, which is our high density residential district. Now, the definition of a secondary suite, this development proposal does meet that definition. We have site plan and floor plan drawings that are in the report that demonstrate compliance with the term secondary suite. So this is an independent and physically separate entrance. And the applicant has indicated to us that there may be shared laundry facilities, but otherwise the unit will be separate from the main dwelling unit. And section 3.34 of the land use bylaw really sets out development standards that these suites need to adhere to. Just to highlight quickly, there's 5 bullet points here. A property like this is permitted 1 secondary suite, and we do have 1 proposed. When you have a secondary suite added to a property, the bylaw requires that you add an additional parking space. And I had shown the site plan earlier in the presentation, and that's additional spaces in the rear yard and will be accessed from the lane. So it does comply in that respect as well. And the additional parking space dimension is 2.7 meters by 6 meters, and that additional parking space does comply. In fact, there's lots of room in that rear yard to provide additional parking, as well as in the front yard where the existing parking is taking place. And the existing house is required to provide 2 parking spaces, and those are already provided in the front yard. And in this case, tandem parking arrangements are not required, so that would be 2 parking spaces, one in front of the other. So you can sometimes run into some maneuverability issues there, and those situations can be permitted. But I think it's important to note here, in this case, that that type of arrangement's not needed. There's plenty of room for parking on the lands. In terms of a summary, the report that council has in front of them right now is recommending that this public hearing proceeds tonight, and the council takes into consideration all the information that they receive at the public hearing regarding the bylaw. And staff are supportive of the overall development proposal, including the second and third reading taking place of the bylaw and the enactment of the bylaw, as the development proposal represents good land use planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Is there anyone present who supports bylaw number 24-02 who wishes to speak? And if you signal with a hand, just make sure you state and spell your first and last name. Okay. Is there anyone present who opposes bylaw number 24-02 who wishes to speak? And I'm not seeing anyone. Is there anyone present deemed to be affected by bylaw number 24-02 who wishes to speak? Moving on, are there any questions of clarification from council? My only question, Glenn, is as they go through the building permit process, that's what would ensure that they are up to code, current code practices as far as developing the suite?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for clarification from council? Seeing and hearing none, I will close the public hearing for bylaw number 24-02, being a bylaw to amend land use bylaw number 14-11 at 6:15 p.m. And that now brings us to item 3.2, public hearing for land use bylaw amending bylaw number 24-01, 1016 Westridge Road. The public hearing for bylaw number 24-01, being a bylaw to amend land use bylaw number 14-11, is in session at 6:16 p.m. This public hearing is held pursuant to the Municipal Government Act, RSA 2000, Chapter M-26, and amendments thereto. Legislative Services?
Thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of this public hearing is to discuss bylaw 24-01, being a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw number 14-11. First reading was given during the February 21st, 2024 regular council meeting. The public hearing was advertised on February 22nd, 2024 through Canada Post, regular mail to adjacent landowners, February 26th, 2024 to present on the town's website, February 28th, 2024 in the Strathmore Times, February 28th, 2024 on Facebook, March 6th, 2024 in the Strathmore Times, March 7th, 2024 on Facebook, and also included in the March utility bill insert. There's been no written submissions received to date.
Thank you. Pursuant to the town's council procedure bylaw, the following rules of conduct shall be followed during the public hearing to ensure procedural fairness. No person shall address council without the permission of the mayor. No person shall speak more than once or for more than 5 minutes, exclusive of the time required to answer questions from council. Respect for staff, council, and the public shall always be maintained, and any person who wishes to address council shall state and spell their name. The order of presentation shall be the administration, those in favor of the bylaw, those opposed to the bylaw, and finally, any other person deemed to be affected by the bylaw. Council may ask questions of the speakers after each presentation for clarification purposes. There will be no debating the bylaw. Would administration like to present now? Good evening, Chuck, and welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. My name is Chuck Proctor. I'm the manager of development services here, and I've got a very brief presentation for council tonight. So staff received a land use bylaw redesignation application for 1016 Westridge Road, Lot 9, Block 1, Plan 9611453. The application is for commercial highway district overlay. So again, retaining that base zoning of commercial highway district, but adding a childcare service into that lot. First reading was given on February 21st, 2024. So I won't read all this notice. Thanks, Claudette, for confirming the notice, but everything was advertised in accordance with the MGA. We also did the town's website, utility insert, and the town's Facebook page. So currently the area has commercial highway land uses to the east and to the west. This is the old bowling alley, the old Sears department store, and most recently Odie's Cannabis Corner. Low to high density residential to the north. And just kind of a front and rear view for council's information. This is the property that we're talking about there. This is a proposed site plan for council. If land use is supported tonight, this is something that we could see at the development permit stage with their proposed site plan. So an existing building with a proposed childcare service or a daycare, a proposed playground, and then their proposed drop-off parking and staff parking. And just the proposed floor plan as well, which is in your report. So staff believe there are some industrial uses mixed into our commercial highway district, and this is why childcare services aren't included in the district already. And it's coming from our land use bylaw 2014. Site-specific land use bylaw amendments are required for childcare services in commercial highway, and that's why we're here tonight for a site-specific land use. In this case, staff, we view the location as appropriate. We don't think there's any large industrial land use conflicts. It's adjacent to residential to the north. The property's north of Highway 1 It's not next to our kind of heavy industrial district. And then Westridge Road was recently upgraded with pedestrian upgrades and trees and a sidewalk. Childcare services will require 1 parking stall per staff member. We believe this is adequate on-site parking to accommodate the staff. There's lots of parking there. Expansion of childcare services may help with the needs of families in town. Strathmore is a growing community. Our municipal development plan, the lands are designated as commercial and north of the Trans-Canada Highway. We think 2.3.5 in our MDP is appropriate. The town shall encourage businesses that provide employment that would allow Strathmore residents to work and live in the town without needing to commute. And there are no concerns from staff around negative impacts on policy direction from our current municipal development plan. Council's and staff's strategic plan, we think there are 2 areas that apply: intentional community development and economic development. For the first one, childcare services may help connect the community, and the service provision is within the municipal boundary. This is potentially a service offered in Strathmore. It adds a space for children. As far as economic development, a new childcare business may open if land use is supported tonight. A new active business license may be acquired. It's currently a vacant building. And just our summary tonight is that council take into consideration all the information received at the public hearing. We're supportive of the development proposal tonight, and thank you, council.
Thank you, Chuck. Is there anyone present who supports bylaw number 24-01 who wishes to speak? And once again, if you do wish to speak, we'd ask you to present your first and last name and please spell them.
Hello,
Good
everyone.
evening.
My name is Sandeep Sharma, and I'm part of that project. We have a lot of experience in childcare. We have 2 facilities already running in Langdon. Sorry, I'm under the weather right now. I see a huge potential here in Strathmore for a quality childcare. So that's why we're here to amend the bylaw to approve the zoning to open a daycare. I think it'll be good for Strathmore because all the staff which is coming to Langdon is from Strathmore too, and they don't have to drive that much, and they can be locally working here. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else in favor of the bylaw? Yes, sir. If you wouldn't mind stating your name and spelling first and last names.
My name is Solomon Davies. Solomon, SOLOMON DAVIES. I am the applicant or the individual in which the application was made for. Mr. Sharma is my business partner. My company, Smartway Daycare Brokerage, is in the business of setting up daycare centers in rural Alberta and smaller cities. Because the government plans to create 66,000 daycare spaces. Strathmore, being where it's situated and the fact that it's growing, is on the top of our list of towns to put daycares. Strathmore have a childcare coverage ratio of about 43%. The provincial government would like to see it around the 60 to 70% across Alberta. So by adding this daycare in Strathmore, we'll be increasing the coverage by 5 to 7%. It's still a long way off in getting Strathmore to the government desired childcare coverage, but we found this location and we've been patiently working with the town to see that we, together with the town, can achieve this. So it is my sincere hope that the town will positively rule in our favor and allow us to turn this location into a daycare center. It's really close to residential communities. It's on the road to work. So that's all I can say is that I appeal to you to please give us the opportunity to turn it into a daycare. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else present who supports bylaw number 24-01 who wishes to speak? And seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to, is there anyone present who opposes bylaw number 24-01 who wishes to speak? Seeing and hearing none, is there anyone present deemed to be affected by bylaw number 24-01 who wishes to speak? And are there any questions of clarification from council? Councillor Mitzner.
Okay, I guess mine is basically concerns. The highway commercial, we have a shortage. It's a commodity. So by taking that off the market for a different use, we lose our highway commercial. And my other concern is there is a saturation of daycare in Strathmore right now with the Marigold building and an additional, the Green Bar downtown. And my understanding is there's one more coming on board. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are you able to answer any of those questions? Solomon? I think you're muted right now.
So, Strathmore is not saturated yet, just because when we started this process, I first had a look at Marigold, and I lost out the Marigold. At that time, Strathmore was at 23% coverage. Marigold is putting in about 200 kids center, 20 plus, and so is the two other daycares that are opening in Strathmore. We will be able to bring the current coverage to between 45 to 50%. We're still short of the 65 to 70% that the provincial government would like to see. So I do not believe it is saturated. All across Alberta, that daycare is being built in every town. The government objective is to build 66,000 more daycare spaces. So no, Strathmore is poised for growth. It is close to Calgary. It's what I consider a bedroom community. So families, it's close to other rural communities. It's not just Strathmore, but the surrounding acreages and rural towns can make use of those centers. The centers that are in operations right now are not. They are not. They are full. Some have a wait list. Some don't have wait list. It all depends on the program. The program we're bringing in is going to be a unique and a really good program. It's good for Strathmore. Strathmore is not saturated. What is considered saturated for daycare right now will be about 90 to 100%. We're not there yet.
Thank you. If there are no other questions from council, I will close the public hearing for bylaw number 24-01, being a bylaw to amend land use bylaw number 14-11 at 6:28 p.m. And I don't believe we have any public comments tonight. We have no delegations tonight. We move now to item 6, consent agenda. Are there any, Councillor Wiley, did you have a question? Or?
Sure, I'm just going to ask to remove item 9.2 strategic plan because I have an amendment. But I can also make the motion.
Okay, so you have a, okay, you're going to present a motion concerning the consent agenda.
No.
No.
Yeah, I'll present the motion for the consent agenda.
Okay.
Is there any others that somebody wants to remove? Okay, that council adopt recommendations of the following agenda reports by an omnibus motion. 7.1, regular council, meeting minutes, March 6th, 2024. 9.1, 2024 FCSS Advisory Board Family and Community Support Services Grant Program. 9.3, Strategic Planning Policy number 1110. 9.4, Intermunicipal Development Plan and Intermunicipal Collaboration Framework with Wheatland County, request for extension.
Okay, so I'm just, okay, I get it. Sorry, I was just a little confused there. Thanks. We have a motion on the floor, and I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
And that motion is carried. We move now back to bylaws. 8.1 land use bylaw, amending bylaw number 24-02, 318 First Avenue, Strathmore. And Glenn, are you touching base on this one last time?
Sure, I can do that quickly. So I think it's important here that the recommendation from staff tonight was to proceed with the public hearing. That did occur. Council should be taking into consideration all the information that was given and provided at the public hearing. And again, staff are supportive of the development proposal, including the second and third reading and the enactment of the bylaw. And I would add to that, of course, that the secondary suite in question, it does represent good land use planning from staff's perspective.
Thank you, Glenn. Councillor Wiley?
Sure,
and
I'm
then
ready for
Council-
the motion.
Okay, thank you.
I move that council give second reading to bylaw number 2402, being a bylaw to amend land use bylaw number 1411. And I would like to speak to the motion.
Sure.
I'm very much in favor of this bylaw. It would be very good to see more of these coming forward. And in fact, I'm hoping that our administration will be making it even easier and even less red tape so that these citizen developers might even be able to somehow skip a public hearing, though I'm not sure how that would all go. If we were to come up with in our MDP some kind of a zoning for the downtown that included this, it would be I would also be much in favor of that.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson, do you have a comment?
Just, thank you, Worship. I just really am in favor for all the reasons that were mentioned by Mr. Ferguson, but I also want to say that in future, we can probably adjust the parking issue around, we've talked about this before, and I'm sure that if there are people out there listening to this and seeing that now we are doing everything in our planning department possible to accommodate secondary suites, especially in our downtown area where people are within walking distance of all amenities, and improving that density that we've sought for so long. So I'm very much in favor of that, but I am also ready to read the next motion, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. I'm excited about this one as well. It's in a good location, and what I really like is the access to the lane and ease of parking that will definitely affect the front of the house as well, so I'd be in support of this. Any other comments before I call the question? All in favor?
Aye.
And the motion is carried. Councillor Peterson?
I would move that council give third and final reading to bylaw number 24-02, being a bylaw to amend land use bylaw number 14-11.
You've all heard the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
And the motion is carried. We move now to item 8.2, land use bylaw, amending bylaw number 24-01, 1016 Westridge Road. Welcome back, Chuck. I didn't see you come forward. It's like you were magic.
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council. Just briefly, thanks for listening to our presentation in the public hearing. Tonight, we're recommending second and third reading for the bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wiley.
I'm prepared for the motion.
Thank you.
The council gives second reading to bylaw number 2401, being a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw 1411.
Thank you for that. Now that we have a motion for second reading, is there discussion on the motion?
Sure, I would speak to it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Time is money. So again, this seems to me an enormous barrier for small businesses and entrepreneurs to come through. I'm hoping in our future MDP plans and our zoning that we're going to be looking at in the next year or two, we find some way to have a prudent relaxation of zoning so that these high-density zones that we already agree on could somehow add basement suites with as little red tape as possible, as well as commercial zones would be flexible enough to allow for small changes like a childcare facility. So I'm very pleased with this, and I'm just hoping it's just the start of some really good things to come.
Thank you for that. This ties into one of the conferences I went to in Jasper, which really hit home with me that the need for daycare and childcare during the day is a big factor in the economy of the town, as well as the housing situation. And a lot of towns actually are looking into having their own municipal backed daycare. And I think with us having the option to have more of these come on stream, I think it's going to help people who are trying to work and support them in their efforts. So I'd be in favor of this. Any other comments? Then I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
And that motion is carried. Oh, opposed? Sorry. So we have that recorded or jotted down. Councillor Peterson?
Your worship, I'd move that council give third and final reading to bylaw 24-01, being a bylaw to amend land use bylaw number 14-11.
Thank you. All in favor? And
Aye.
opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Chuck. Our next item on the agenda is 9.2. It's been removed from the consent agenda, and it's found on page 145 of the agenda. Kara, will you be starting off the discussion on this? Or starting off the presentation or review?
So we don't have a formal presentation prepared for you tonight because we had put it on the consent agenda, but we are happy to answer any questions or provide any clarification that council may require.
Thank you. Any questions from council for Kara or administration? Councillor Wiley? Oh, I see. Okay, is someone prepared to put a motion on the floor then if there are no questions, and then we can discuss that? So I think we're looking for a motion, and then you're planning to offer an amendment to the motion? I see. I wasn't sure what was happening there. Councillor Peterson.
Your worship, I would move that council adopt strategic planning policy number 1110 as presented in attachment 1, and that council rescind strategic policy number 1106. Oh, no, wrong motion, never mind. I take that back, your worship. That council adopt the revised 2022 to 2025 strategic plan as presented in attachment 1. My apologies.
Thank you. And now that we have a motion on the floor, there can be discussion. Councillor Wiley.
Sure, I'm going to move to amend the motion to remove key activity 3.3, diversity, equity, inclusivity from our strategic plan. I have it on page 165.
Thank you. And did you want to speak to that?
Yes. So for the last 2 years, I've supported our strategic plan, always with a bit of hesitancy. But it's become obvious to me that we can't continue to include this diversity, equity, inclusivity, IEDs in our strategic plan. And I am prepared to just talk about 4, I think, very valid reasons why we should remove them. I think I've spoken before that these IEDs are inherently divisive. It's imperative that we understand they come from critical race theory, that they're designed to divide communities into 2 social classes, the oppressor and the oppressed. Under the IED framework, all relationships are divided into a struggle for power. So the way that you'll see it work historically is husband versus wife, student versus teacher, person of color versus white person, cisgender versus transgender, and the list goes on and on. I oppose IEDs because they're divisive. Reason number 2, inclusivity, equity, and diversity programs make discrimination and exclusion even worse in communities. In the past, I've already cited Harvard's landmark 2018 study, but it's worth considering just 3 quotes once again. Quote number 1, they concluded anti-bias training activates stereotypes. Quote number 2, people react negatively to efforts to control them. And quote number 3, bias training backfires. Reason 3, IED programs are just that, they're programs. They cost taxpayer money. So not only are they divisive, not only are they ineffective, but they're also wasteful. Equity programs are supposed to return power to the disenfranchised, to the poor or the most vulnerable members of our society. Instead, they require more taxes to support them, and the consultants and bureaucrats require the more taxes to support the tax and the bureaucrats. The words inclusivity, diversity, and equity are also immeasurable. They seem elusive. They're undefinable. By adding them to our plan, we're actually creating more inefficiencies. So the third reason I disagree with them is that they cost money, they do not work, and they're divisive. The final reason, inclusivity, equity, and diversity programs go against all the successes of the civil rights movement of our forefathers, the successes built upon the liberal democratic system that we cherish. To quote Martin Luther King Jr. again, he said, "I have a dream where one day a man would be judged not by the color of his skin, but by the content of his character." I share that dream. By promoting IEDs, we're judging people, celebrating people, and affirming people not based on the content of their characters, not based on their merits, but by some inherent feature such as race, sex, or sexual orientation. IEDs are actively undoing all the successes we've had to create and promote an actual inclusive and loving society. So in summary, I cannot and I will not support our council's strategic plan so long as it includes a key action item that promotes inclusivity, diversity, and equity. My 4 reasons are: they are divisive, they don't work, they make things worse, they waste taxpayer money through inefficiencies, and finally, they undo the achievements of our functioning liberal democracy. In conclusion, they are the error of our day and age, and someday we will look back on all this aghast that we went along with it. So please support my amendment.
Thank you for your opinions that you've expressed. Any other comments? Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think that I can't imagine disagreeing with a councillor any more than I disagree with Councillor Wiley. And I want to speak specifically to his statement about about diversity, equity, and inclusivity creating divisiveness. So, like Councillor Wiley, I've been a social studies teacher for nearly 40 years. Oh, he hasn't been there that long, but I have. And so while I am far from being an expert in history, I have a place of some capacity within it. And so I also know that in that process that the civil rights movement that happened in my lifetime was also seen as very divisive. The language that was used to describe it is what Councillor Wiley noted today. And so, you know, Martin Luther King did want people judged by their character and not by the color of their skin, but he also marched in every major civil rights movement within the era. And he also said that darkness can't drive out darkness, only light can do that, and not paying attention to issues that are addressed by diversity, equity, and inclusion certainly do not bring light. And Martin Luther King also said, "We shall overcome because the arc of moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice." So while I don't necessarily believe in fairness, I certainly believe in trying to strive for justice. So the civil rights movement was considered divisive by the people of the day. Multiculturalism in our own country was also considered divisive. Also, legalizing same-sex marriage in this country was seen as being divisive. My grandmother marched in suffrage movements, and that was seen as divisive. My mother fought for equal rights and equal pay for teachers and was a major mover in the teachers union in the Alberta Teachers Association in the 1930s because there was not equal pay, and certainly the people of the day noted that was divisive. So while I do think that sometimes striving for diversity, equity, and inclusion is really hard, that it is extremely worthwhile, and that during key pivot points in history, doing the right thing has always been characterized as divisive, as it is being here today. I further think that my role in political leadership isn't always to unite people, but it is to make sure that everybody gets a just shake. And so when people talk about divisiveness in this process, they want to characterize it as making sure that everybody is equal, that everybody is seen as being equal. But so very often, and I quote a former BC politician, in fact, Ms. Raybould Wilson's father, when he was speaking about Indigenous people, and he said, when we talk about rights for Indigenous people in Canada, the people in power want to speak to it as being divisive. They want to see us as all equal because we live in this country of such immense freedom. And they believe that we can run the race with equality. They just want us to start 100 yards behind the start line. So I think it's really, really key that we think about our role in political leadership as not always being one that sits here to unite people, but one that does seek justice for all people. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Langmaid.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I won't be able to support this amendment this evening. I am sitting here as a beneficiary of what Councillor Wiley describes as IED or DEI or whatever you want to call it, but I have benefited from that system as a woman. Women in Alberta didn't have the right to vote until 1916, just a little over 100 years ago, much less hold office. And I couldn't have achieved where I am now without efforts to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion in our society. And I would never want to take that same opportunity away from anyone else. It would be disrespectful to the privilege that I have. Additionally, I know that I understand that the fight and the effort to bring in a more diverse and inclusive society is long and hard and often seems divisive. It wasn't until 1964 in Alberta that a woman could open her own bank account without her husband's signature. 1964. So this is where diversity, equity, and inclusion gets us. Is down that path. And if we can't see that people are struggling, then we need to open our eyes and listen better. But no, as a beneficiary of programs that have promoted equality and given equal opportunity to women to participate in society, I absolutely I cannot support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, I'd like to say something, please.
Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you. So the problem with this topic is that it's a lot of things to a lot of people. We have some people on this council who, for good reason, believe that that there is ties or similarities to the civil rights movements of the past, women's suffrage, and other types of movements that have, progressed towards equality for people. And they're not wrong for seeing similarities and for seeing it from the perspective that they do. And you know what, Councillor Wiley is also not wrong for what he describes. He's not describing anything that is not actually true. There are people that treat DEI as a weapon, as a way to enrich themselves, as a way to promote an agenda that is beneficial to them in some way. It can be divisive, absolutely. And then I'm saying this from a perspective of somebody who you know, I I used to hear people saying what Councillor Wiley said years ago, and I would say, you know, this sounds crazy. You know, like how can this be? You know, or you know, I thought it was like, you know, some right wing conspiracy from you know coming out of the United States or something like that. And you know what, I read into it a little bit, but what I did was I actually started attending you know seminars and sessions where DEI was being promoted by the actual proponents of DEI, the people who are the true believers. And what I saw was I saw some people that were, you know, certainly well intentioned. Others, you know, there's people that have the best of intentions, and you know, they want to do the right thing. And so, from that perspective, those are the people that are promoting DEI with you know with a good heart and with you know with positive intentions. And but I also saw people that you know essentially their job you know revolves around you know finding things like racism which does exist, but you know finding racism under every stone, for instance, or you know finding a way to blame it on you know every difference that is identifiable in society. And that's you know that's what people like Councillor Wiley are pointing to, is that there are people who certainly do take advantage of the rest of us who have good intentions and who want you know the best for society and the best for individuals. And you know uh, and so you know we can we have to be careful, I guess. And so something that I've asked for many times, well, I shouldn't say many, but whenever this discussion comes up, I would love to sit down and so if Councillor Wiley's motion fails, I do plan to put forward a motion asking council to actually discuss this at a committee of the whole, because the problem is that you know these words, diversity, you know, it's not diversity with a small d, it's diversity with a capital D. You know, it's equity. What does equity mean? You know, we haven't actually you know sat down and agreed on what these terms mean. And so we can have them in our strategic plan, but if we can't even agree on the definitions of these words, then it's meaningless to have it in our strategic plan. And that's why I do support Councillor Wiley's motion, and I will vote for it, because I don't think with the way it stands now that we can have these terms in there if we can't even you know agree on what they mean. And so something that I've asked for and something that I do hope that we can do what you know, and I even say this as you know I just went this afternoon to a session where you know we were discussing inclusivity and how to make this community more inclusive. And there was some the people there you know were good people who had good intentions and you know do actually want to make positive change. And so I see that you know, and I'm one of those people. But there's it's kind of a fraught landscape, you know, and there's landmines. And so you know, I guess you know to cut a long story long, but yeah, we need to sit down and actually you know agree on what these terms mean. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will not be supporting the amendment. I've listened to it. I've listened to all of our discussions. We've had many discussions on this. Will a DEI policy cause divisiveness? I'm not sure. We did have divisiveness far before DEI. We have the responsibility to try to help people in minorities improve their situations so they can have the most fair chance to succeed. I've used this example before, but my parents were European immigrants who struggled with the English language, and they were treated terribly by some of the longtime locals, white locals who spoke the language well, and a nickname of DPs was applied to any European immigrant in my town, and I'm sure it was in other towns as well. They associated a thick accent with a lack of intelligence, so they tagged this nickname on people. And I think my parents might have benefited from some DEI support in the 1950s and 60s, but it wasn't there. So the divisiveness was already in our society. I think people who support DEI are trying to create a situation where there is more equality and there are chances for people in minorities. It's easy for us who are white to say that this could cause a lot of problems in the future and it's going to lead to divisiveness. It was already here. And I won't be supporting the amendment, and if the motion does pass, I would like to remind all of council that means that Strathmore Town Council supports the strategic plan. Any other comments? Councillor Peterson.
Your Worship, just in, for people who are watching at home, this administration and this council have worked diligently to educate ourselves about diversity, equity, and inclusivity. And just recently, we had a wonderful opportunity that the majority of council chose to access, and that was a presentation by Joanne Kinya-Baker, who owns a company called Shades of Humanity. And she engaged both our council and our staff, I believe, in a very, very open discussion around the issues that were identified in terms of how we characterize it and how we identify it and how we define it. And I think it's something that we do need to continue learning about for sure. But I will not be supporting the motion. And I do want to assure our community that this is something that we are engaged in terms of our own learning going forward.
Thank you. Any other comments? And then I'll just remind council that we're voting on the motion to amend the motion that was presented. So all in favor of the amendment? Opposed? And the motion is defeated. And now we have a motion on the floor. Claudette, I just want to ensure that we have it correctly stated. We have a motion from Councillor Peterson that council adopt the revised 2022 to 2025 strategic plan as presented. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So we have that motion on the floor. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And the motion is carried. We now move to item 10, councillor information and inquiries.
Excuse me, Your Worship.
Councillor Montgomery.
I have a motion, as I kind of mentioned previously. And as Councillor Peterson pointed out, I'll make the motion, I guess. So I will move that council hold a discussion at an upcoming committee of the whole. And if administration could advise me on whether April 10th or June 8th work better, please.
Sorry, I'm confused, Councillor Montgomery. I thought you were not presenting a motion tonight?
Well, this is like a different motion from the one I emailed everyone about.
I see. Okay.
So is it under, what item is it under, Councillor Montgomery?
Under which, sorry?
What agenda item is this motion being made under?
The current agenda item.
Just for clarity, 10.1?
No, 9.2, I believe it is.
Okay, I think we may need a recess here because that's been voted on and carried by council. So I'd like to confer with my ledge folks here, if we could have a quick recess.
Okay, motion to take a quick recess. 10 minutes, 5 minutes?
Let's go with, we'll try for 5. Let's go.
Let's do 10, just to make sure.
Okay.
Councillor Wagoner.
I move that council take a 10-minute recess.
All in favor? Councillor Montgomery?
I think I have a motion on the floor, don't I? Or I don't right now.
I don't remember you making a motion. You were talking about wanting to make one, but
Oh, yeah, well, I said like I moved